Howdy. I'm Gray Pilgrim. Well, some of the folks I have who have commented on the stuff that I've done, both online and I was chatting with a lady online on IRC of all things the other day, and she commented on this looking like Indiana Jones's hat. Well, I thought that was kind of nice, but anyway, some of the people say that I do a fair job of explaining history in a more natural way than they remember from that boring guy back in high school. Well, I'm going to slightly rant today, but before I do, I want to give a history lesson of sorts. Here on the table in front of you are two rifles. These are produced by the Remington Arms Company. Well, besides the 1917 Enfield, these are the only Remingtons I own. Both are the genius of John Pedersen. Who's John Pedersen? He was the man that John Moses Browning called the best best gunsmith of the 20th century, gun designer. Well, he was also the inventor of what became known as the Pedersen device, which was the drop-in replacement for the bolt on a 1903 Springfield, and he also had one designed for the 1917 and another for the SMLE. And what it was basically something that shot a 30 caliber long cartridge, just a scotch longer than what is now 32 auto. Actually, it's the same cartridge that was picked up by the French and used as the French long. And it was it was fed from this long sideways fitting magazine of 40 or so rounds. I forget how many. And it was supposed to be for the doughboys to take into battle and use for walking fire, and basically spray and pray the enemy with pistol bullets. It was a stupid idea, but it was something the War Department thought highly of, and they had it top secret, and it was going to be for the spring offensive of 1919, which never came because of armistice. So all the Pedersen devices were scrapped, melted down. They went into a warehouse for a while, then they were scrapped, melted down, and because some of the hardware or warehouse workers were a little bit five-fingered in their process, they put aside a few of them. And those today are some of the most valuable gun collectibles in the world, even though technically they're Class 3 devices. We have some loopy laws. Anyway, these suckers here, this one's it's called a Model, now don't quote me on this, but I think this is a Model 14. And I forget what model this is. I had one exactly like this. I bought this recently. It's a takedown, and it's a 22 for a kid. And it's the kind I had. An uncle gave it to me ages and ages ago. And it was the kind you could take it apart, strap it to the side of your bike, and ride off somewhere and be totally independent and armed and protected. And you could go out and murder dirt clods at the local mud hole to all day, or until you ran out of 22 rounds and had to go and collect some Coke bottles to get the deposit money and buy some more. That's what I did, at least. And I wasn't very social, so this is what I did. Remington Arms was founded by a man by the name of, and this is a weird one, Elephant Remington. And he was a junior, and he was born in 1793. Now, dear Elephant, he decided that, his dad was a blacksmith, and he followed in the trade. Well, he bought a lock, it was a flintlock lock, from a local gunsmith, and then he went back to the forge, and he made himself a barrel, and then whittled out a stock and put it all together, and he had a flintlock. And he sold it and made some good money. And he thought, I could make a business out of this. So he did. And he founded what became known as E. Remington and Sons, because he brought his sons in on the job. And matter of fact, he named one of his sons Elephant as well, so that was Elephant the Third. And he, well, from 1793, he died in 1861. And between those two, he created quite a substantial business. Well, by 1861, of course, we were in the Civil War, and they were trying to get as many revolvers as they can. We'll back up just a little bit to the 1840s. In 1840 whatever, Sam Colt had built the Patterson and had gone bankrupt. He kept track of the machine tools from that Patterson plant, and well, when Sam Walker showed up and said, "Hey, design me a new revolver," they came up with Colt Walker, and had to make 1,000 of them. Well, he didn't have a manufacturing plant to make them, so he went to Eli Whitney Jr. in Connecticut and said, "Make me one of these." Well, Eli Whitney Jr., his dad, Eli Whitney Sr., had founded a small community, well, really near New Haven, which is sort of a bedroom community today, that was called Whitneyville. And Whitneyville was basically surrounded the Whitney Armory, which was built in an old flour mill that they converted. Well, Eli Whitney Jr. revamped the flour mill and made it a huge mill run by a very large water wheel, which, by the way, he had to create a bigger dam on the river there to supply the power he needed. And because of that, now the Whitneyville Reservoir is the main water source of New Haven. A little trivia there. Well, anyway, while he was doing that, here comes the U.S. government with their arms department and says, "Make us a gazillion revolvers." Well, remember, he had just made the Dragoon for Colt, and then Colt bought back all of his tooling and set up his own plant in, I think it was in New Haven, come to think of it. Yeah, New Haven. And using that as the basis for the tooling. But before that, he'd also come up with the 1849 Colt had, which was a pocket pistol. And Whitney was watching Colt's actions. Well, meanwhile, Whitney Jr. had come up with a design of his own. And instead of the open top of the Colt, this one had a top strap. Well, another company, Remington, saw that and thought, "Hey, this is pretty cool." In just a second here, I'll show you something. Oh. See those? These two are Remingtons. This is not, and this is not. Now, what sparked this was some remarks about this one. What is it? Oh, God, I always forget the name of this company. I don't know what it is, but it's some magic about the name. Rogers and Spencer, which I say is one of the best revolvers ever made in the black powder cap and ball era. But keep that in mind for the moment. These are based on the Whitneyville revolver. Top strap, a central pin for takedown. You pull this lever out like that, and then you put it in half cock. Then you pull this out, and the whole dang thing comes out. Then you can drop this cylinder, and if you're Clint Eastwood, you walk along. I forget, it's The Unforgiven, one of his spaghetti westerns of The Man with No Name, where he does this and ends up with another full cylinder and fills her up again and goes off to complete the whatever the bad guys were in the town that he needed to take care of. Come on now, and I'm always lousy at doing this. I'm not Clint Eastwood, and I'm not really a big fan of the Remington system. I'll do that later. This one is a later pattern. I don't think that Remington ever made a brass frame like this, but Pieta did, because it's cheaper and you could market these quickly. Well, this is a Navy Arms and is it has a slightly different latch here. And this is steel frame. This is 36 caliber, which I don't think at this time they were making. The Whitneyville was a 36, 1854, as I recall. But the actual Remington never was. And they made it in 44 for the U.S. Army. Well, meanwhile, down in the Deep South, there were a couple of guys named Spiller and Burr. And Spiller and Burr were trying to come up with a revolver to sell to the Confederacy. And, well, I think it was Spiller who knew something about the Whitneyville. And he went to the Confederate Congress and said, hey, guys, I know you want me to make these Colt 1851 types for you because all of your officers came from West Point and they know all about that particular revolver. But if you buy the Whitneyville, it's a better, more robust design, and I can make those a lot cheaper. Well, they had a really overglorified opinion of their abilities. And I think all of maybe 5 Spiller and Burrs were actually made of the 50,000 planned, contracted revolvers. But this is an Italian copy of a Spiller and Burr. It uses a totally different latch system. You spin this, and I think you put it like that to fire, and you put it like, no, wait a minute, you hold it like that to lock it and fire, put it like that, put it in half cock and pull the pin. And it's just like the Whitneyville, and it's brass frame because they had trouble getting steel because, well, the South had absolutely no infrastructure for it, and that was the problem the Confederacy never figured out. But it's interesting because the Spiller and Burr is probably the only surviving Whitneyville around anymore that is worth anything, if you can find one. Like I said, this is a facsimile. I have seen an original one. I think today there's maybe 5 of them still in existence. But just an interesting thought. Anyway, this is and I said it was Rogers and Spencer is the best one made, and it just missed the Civil War because it had been finished and ready to ship when Appomattox came along, and it was all over. And the North then canceled every contract, but they'd already spent a whole bunch of money on this one as a down payment, and the guys had good lawyers and came over and said, you promised. And they said, okay. And they took shipment on all of the ones that they had contracted for and ended up putting them in a warehouse where they sat forever until Bannerman bought them surplus and sold them dirt cheap in his catalog. And, well, this is not a Bannerman. This is an EMF copy from Navy Arms. And it's a really cool pistol. I love it. This is my favorite, this is my favorite black powder revolver. But the point is, these two represent what these two rifles are, Remingtons. And these were the Remington introduction to pistols or revolvers. I think there was the Model 51, which was their first automatic, which was in 32. And the original 51 was a really cool pistol. They made another version of it in the 2000s, and it sucked. It sucked so bad. And they basically, I think in 2020, they ended up going bankrupt. I think that it's owned now by a concern. I'm not exactly sure. I think that the Remington's primer business is now owned in Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic. Of course, that company is a holding company and controls CCI, Remington. I think they've got Alcan and Dynamite Nobel and all. I mean, they got European and U.S. Primers all in one. Fortunately, America's own arsenals may have primer makers, but and I think so do most European countries, because otherwise the armies would be in real deep shit because, well, Czechoslovakia. Anyway, I said I was going to rant, and I am. Okay, can you see me? Good. Well, as I was saying, this lady liked my hat. But for today's world, I thought This is the hat I should be wearing, but I can't really say that these days, because if I wear this, I'll be a seditious or something. So I'll be more circumspect and Democrat and wear my red Chinese cap. How's that? Now I'm ready to go accept bribes from Peking. So I could use the money. So if you really want to give me some bribes, I'll be more than happy to take them. If it worked for Hunter Biden, it'll work for me. Yeah, I have several weird hats, and this is one I found. Well, my cousin gave it to me, and an old dear friend gave me that "Make America Great Again" cap. And recently I saw a meme I loved. It says "Make America Greta Again." It's for eco nuts. Anyway, I'm not going to say much at all about this or the red one, because well, we live in a crazy world right now. Did you hear Biden last night on his address to the nation? We're in deep doo-doo, guys. We are in such deep doo-doo, and we have such an incompetent there in command. You know, and even if he steps down, what are we left with? Kamala the cackling cow? No, if she steps down, we'll end up with what? Secretary of Labor, who isn't even confirmed, ending up as the commander-in-chief. I have no idea. I mean, we don't even have a we don't have a Speaker of the House at the moment. What is it? President pro tem of the Senate after that. And then we have, I think it goes down through the cabinet and then goes down through, oh God, could you imagine Blinken? Oh, Lord. And then it goes down. I don't know how it goes from there. And end up with the Undersecretary of Sewage of Newark or something like that. Hell, he'd probably do a better job. But, you know, happens when you steal an election. Really does. Anyway, just that's my little history of Remington and a little rant. Happy trails.